You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's going on, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of No Other Pod.
Woo!
I am Jimmy, along with my good buddy Dan. And Dan, second week in a row, we got an MLS victory pod here to talk about.
Life is weird like that sometimes, my man. Don't know what to think, but here we are, and we're feeling good, and we're gonna swim in it. We're gonna swim in this feeling for as long as we can.
Yeah, that was this game against Minnesota, probably the best game that Sporting KC has put together as a complete game throughout the entire year.
In a long time.
In a long time, so lots
Yeah.
to talk about there. We do technically have this Houston game to talk about that I don't really want to talk about, but what is the US Open Cup? I don't know.
What?
I don't think it's real.
No, it's it's an amateur thing. No.
But so we will talk about that for a little bit before we get into the Minnesota game and the huge week coming up, the Heartland Derby, as it is apparently being called by one side at least. So
one side, St. Louis is like, oh, we're just calling it whatever you want now. Okay.
Yeah, I got a little info on that St. Louis wasn't in on the Heartland Derby name, so
yeah, I know.
We'll see.
St. Louis was like, we'll wait to see what the fans call it.
Yeah. I mean, I have an idea for what the Derby should be called, and it's not barbecue, but we can get to that a little bit later. I have an idea that I'm not to hype it up too much, but I was like, that kind of would have been kind of cool. But
well, you are going to hype it when you say you're going to talk about it later. Everyone's going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to fast forward. That's so exciting.
I figure when we talk about the St. Louis game after the upcoming LAFC game, maybe we'll get to it then. But
barf.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to talk about this episode. But yeah,
games are coming hot and heavy now, man. Games are coming hot and heavy. You know, I'm fine. I hated to miss the game in person on Saturday.
Yeah.
But I did watch it on Sunday in its entirety and treated it just as if it was live. Like I was so just yelling at the TV, and I'm like, okay, relax. It's recorded. You know what happens. You know the outcome.
Yeah.
You know what minutes the goals come.
Yeah.
Just calm down.
Because you had me text you updates throughout the game. So as the goals were coming, I was sending you messages, which you and I are different that way, because when I can't watch the game, I'm always like, text Dan ahead of time. I'll put in the Slack channel. Can't watch the game. I'm going to record it. Try to avoid spoilers.
I had 4 people texting me about the game. It was nice, but I was in a place where I didn't really get service, so they all kind of came in like 6 at a time. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that explains why I was getting the green bubbles when I was trying to text you.
No shit. Okay, there you go.
Dreaded green bubble text. But
gotcha.
It was a fun game. Definitely a better environment than the last time we were in Children's Mercy Park. That's for sure, because there were no chants calling for Peter Vermeer's job. But first, if you haven't left us that 5-star rating and review, go ahead and do so. We'd appreciate it. We'll read it on there if we get more. So thank you all to those of you who have done it. Let's start, as much as we don't want to, just briefly touching on this U.S. Open Cup game that did happen, whether we want to remember it or not, last Wednesday night. And I don't remember, were you watching this one live, or was this one you had to kind of catch up on? Because it was one that I watched, but it was not the most fun.
No, I watched it live because I texted you when the red card happened, and I said, well, only us could not squeak out a win out of this, so let's see what happens. And you're like, let's see.
Yeah, it was, and I saw some comments after this game. Of course, we all know Sporting KC lost 1-0 down on the road in Houston. I saw some comments after this game that were like, yeah, of course, Sporting KC, not creating any chances, can't do it. This game actually wasn't a case of there weren't any chances created. There were plenty of chances created.
Oh, a ton of chances.
There were wide open goals that Steven Afrifa had right in front of goal. That could have been his first career goal for Sporting KC.
He could have been a hero.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, welcome to KC, baby. And he just didn't do it. Didn't get it done.
No,
there was too much pressure.
Too many options for Sporting KC to score, and they just couldn't put one in the back of the net. We continuously were hitting the ball over the crossbar, just not getting it on frame. It was really, really frustrating. We outshot Houston 17-2 on the night. 4 of those were on goal, but there should have been probably another 4 or 5 at least on target. They just couldn't get them on target. The biggest one being the Afrifa sort of Wando skied it the way that Wando did back in the World Cup. 67% possession for Sporting Kansas City to 33. I didn't end up seeing at the end an expected goals like final tally, but at one point I think it was Chad Smith put out that Sporting KC had nearly 2 XG and Houston had 0.07. So this was not a matter of Sporting Kansas City not creating chances. This was a matter of Sporting Kansas City not finishing chances. And I mean, you look at the lineup that we put out, and it was a weird mix of people. Roger Espinoza was playing left back.
It was weird. And I'm kind of convinced that if we don't have a similar lineup to what we had in Minnesota and to what we had in Seattle, then we're not good. And that sucks. I'm kind of convinced that we can't get the job done unless certain pieces are there. Unless Kinda's on the field in some way, sometime. Which, God, I hate saying one player changes everything, but damn it if he doesn't help us out a lot.
Yeah, it is weird that Sporting Kansas City is so reliant on basically one solid first choice 11. I mean, there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but I think that has been part of the criticism of Peter Vermes this year, and it kind of cuts two ways. Like, okay, well, yes, if you are missing a significant number or all of your designated players, obviously you're not going to be great. But I think there's sort of a pretty big drop off from like the first 11, maybe 12 or 13 players, and then there's a kind of a gap, and then the rest of the players, because you look at who's on the bench sometimes, and there's just not a lot of firepower to bring in, and that's something that we'll see. Maybe that's attempted to be addressed here in the summer window coming up. They bring in a little depth. We do not have the U.S. Open Cup to worry about anymore, obviously, because it was in the 12th minute, really out of nowhere. I'm going to butcher his name. Thor Ulfarsson kind of just got a shot on goal from distance that got past Pulskamp. And even though Chase Gasper was called for a red card Dogsville penalty just outside the box in the 35th minute, as you mentioned, Sporting Kansas City could not capitalize for the next 65 minutes and change, and that's that.
Listen, Marinos Chinese was very dangerous. I was like, yo, they cannot touch this man. They can't catch him. And for that guy to foul him, the fact that we couldn't capitalize on being up a man for like 60 minutes, that foul looks like the smartest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That man is in the locker room or wherever. Maybe he went home or something, and he's watching the rest of the game. It ends, and he's like, it's a pretty smart red card on my end.
He'll take it.
He's got to feel great.
Yeah. I mean, Janice, like you said, down that right side, and it's unusual he's on the right side. A lot of times he's on the left side. I mean, he was getting around Gasper and Smith. They kind of were playing a 3-5-2. So there was Brad Smith kind of playing that wing back left side alongside Gasper. Janice was getting around them for the first half, at least, pretty easily. He was much more quiet in the second half. I'm not sure what really was going on. Of course, Gadi Kinda came out, so maybe that was part of it, is there was a little bit less there. But, I mean, part of me wants to be bummed about this game because it's like it was there for the taking. This should have been a 3-1 victory. Should have been a 3-0 victory, probably. That shot shouldn't have gone in for Houston.
Both teams rotated lineups. Like, it was pretty evenly matched, but we were on the front foot the whole freaking time.
Yeah.
God,
this
dude.
was not a close game in terms of performance on the field. Sporting Kansas City.
They barreled in, and they're like, go ahead and try to get around us. Like, and that's hard.
It is hard. And that's the bummer. As soon as they got that first goal, it's already kind of tough to play in Houston, and Ben Olsen, the coach down there, is kind of Benny Ball, as they call it, which it's this annoying style. Pack it in, steal a goal, and then just kind of park the bus and wait it out and play an ugly game. And this game perfectly encapsulated Benny Ball. And yeah, it's just a bummer that, you could maybe quibble with some of the decisions, but I don't think and again, I'm not trying to be a Peter Vermes apologist. I don't actually have any problem with the way Peter Vermes handled this game. And I don't think that the loss was on any sort of like tactical or strategic decision Peter made. I think this one truly, simply was a case of players weren't executing.
Yeah.
So it's a bummer, and it kind of sucks that that's the way it went. But it is what it is, and there's not much that you can do. Um, there was a funny moment in the game when Shelton had sort of a one-on-one moment where he probably should have scored and he didn't. And the commentator
Went
goes,
off the post,
"Shelton,
right?
he can't." Yeah, it went off the post. And Shelton, he can't finish. And I just heard the collective sigh of Sporting Kansas City fans, all being like, "Yes, we know."
Terrible, man. Terrible. And you know, you got Zusi back in there putting in dangerous balls.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, dude, that's classic Zusi. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing. But fuck, Remy Voltaire was dangerous. Nemanja Radoja was back in the lineup doing things. It just had everything. I don't know, man. I am sad. I know you're saying maybe let's, throw it away, but like, oh, this Open Cup game was there, and we could have potentially had another one at home. But whatever, we can't get it done unless we have that first choice 11, give or take one or two people are interchangeable in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm kind of convinced we're only good if Gadi Kinda's around. I don't know.
Gadi Kinda certainly has seemingly unlocked something new in the midfield. Now, I think Alan Pulido is getting more fit and is more comfortable dropping back into the midfield and is unlocking spaces for the midfielders and the wingers to run in the box. And Peter Vermees told me I had a good observation after the Minnesota game. I certainly wasn't the only one who had this observation. There were many people who have noticed a change in where Eric Tommy's lining up on the field. But
he made you feel good, did he?
Well, he didn't divulge any information. He's like, for tactical reasons, I'm not going to answer that question. But good observation. And I was like, oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, best buddy.
But yeah, Gadi Kinda, man, I think if nothing else, when he is on the field, and especially when he's on the field with Eric Tommy, just gives another truly creative attacking piece that plays off of instinct, and it's good instinct, where he doesn't have to sit there and analyze the situation to death and delay the next pass or delay the next shot or the next dribble, because so much of this team in the first 10, 11 games, and even the Open Cup outside of Tulsa, has been, they just seem like they're paralyzed and they don't know what to do. And it's either slow, or they wait too long and then try to make the decision, or they try to do it all themselves. And Kinda's just out there based on instinct, just playing. So,
you mentioned the Tulsa game. Quick side note. I have a couple friends, well, they're friends of my dad's, but I've met them, and they go, I think they sit up in like the box, the suite area. And I think they have suites. And I'm like, well, that's pretty freaking cool. You want to hang out? But, but they were like up there with the Tulsa, like, owners and staff, technical crew and whatever. And they were just smiling the whole time. They were just happy to be there. Like, they really were. It was a field trip for them. They talked about how, like, yeah, we got the big bus to come up here, and they even said, like, their full team budget to, like, pay people is like $40-some thousand.
Yeah, it's not,
which is, didn't we hear that, like, the owner cuts the grass of the fields or some shit?
Well, and after the game, they actually, I think, got booted off of their field that they normally play on because it didn't even meet like NPSL standards, and they were trying to fight it. So like they didn't even have a field really to play on at home anymore.
What an insane, like, little Cinderella story. I mean, I know we whooped their ass, but like, just to be happy to be there and playing in that environment, like, really cool for those people.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So our U.S. Open Cup journey, similar to Tulsa's now, is over. It is what it is. So we focus on MLS play. There will be another competition, the Leagues Cup, later that will play Chivas and I don't even remember who else is in our little
barf,
group.
Bro. Total barf. Yeah, let's go to a 9:00 Central game at home.
Yeah,
like, how does that make sense?
It's not great. But we're going to talk about the Minnesota game. But first, let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
All right, y'all. We are back here. So we're going to talk about the main thing y'all want to talk about, the 3-0 win against Minnesota. Although I do want to highlight, before we talk about that game, we did get an email from a listener named Mark Schlebusch. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Mark. It is an email that we got on Thursday. So this was after the Houston game and before the Minnesota game. So just to put you in perspective, like sort of, we just came off a frustrating loss. The Seattle game had happened, so kind of mixed emotions. We have this Minnesota game coming up. Here he goes. Nice win at Seattle. Pleasantly surprised they won, and I could rub it in the face of colleagues that are from I could rub it in the face of a colleague that is a Sounders season ticket holder. So there's always that. And he goes, I always thought that Voltaire was better as a defensive mid. However, without Kinda, Tommy, and Polito on the pitch at the same time, SKC are mediocre at best. See, the Houston match were even up a man for the majority of the match. They could not score. The DPs definitely made an impact at Seattle and made SKC much more dynamic. We saw the previous matches, what happens without them. Hopefully the DPs remain healthy. They will need rest, though. And if they are not out there, I fear SKC will drop points, not enough depth at those positions. No response from the front office is kind of telling. Maybe they think a win will silence the critics. Keep up the nice work on the pod, lads. Mark.
Well, Mark, thank you, brother. I tell you, though, why would we not bring I understand giving your big players time off. You know what I mean? You put in work, you're doing the things, making the moves. But like, dude, can you imagine if we brought our big guns to Houston and didn't start them, but you just got them sitting over there at the bench, just licking their lips, ready to go, and coming in like the 80th minute to get fired up, dude, for Johnny to split a couple defenders. It's just, I don't know why that can't happen.
My guess is it's a case of like, you just he decided after the Seattle win, like, okay, if we're going to turn this around, we got to make some moves here in MLS. And maybe Peter was like, I'm not even going to bring him and risk it. I'm not going to tempt myself because, he could have brought Johnny in, but it was Houston. It had been rainy. It was hot. And if one of them did their ACL or whatnot in the last 10 minutes of an Open Cup game, that is the rest of the season gone.
Okay, so then that shows that our coach does not value U.S. Open Cup.
At least this year, probably for
right.
Sure.
Essentially, I mean, it's not you can't confidently say we're going to go after every trophy or whatever, like he always says. But he cut off Daniel Sperry in one of the interviews. I think after he usually does, but I think after the game, I think Daniel asked him about like the rotated lineup, and Peter just goes, "That's not what it is. That's not." He wanted to give those guys their flowers and make them look like they're professionals, and we all know. We know the gap in quality there, man, or they would play all the time. Like, what are you talking about?
That is a funny thing, coach speak thing, or not, I don't know if it's just the machismo and of coaches or the pride of coaches and players, whatnot. But like, it's okay to admit that, like, we rotated because it's a long season, a lot of games. We can't play the same 11 people every single game.
Don't tell us that this is Ethan Bryant and this is Gotti Kinda. Like, you're not the same person. Right. And we know that. So don't pee on our shoe and tell us it's raining. All right. We get it.
I did feel a little bad for Sperry when he was asking the question after the Minnesota game, and he was like, it's getting closer. And Peter was like, closer? Like, did you watch the game out there? It's 3-0. Like, what do you mean closer?
What did he mean it was getting closer? What's that mean?
Like, he was like, I forget the exact phrasing of the wording, but he was like 3-0. Obviously, the attack is doing better and getting closer. And Peter was like, closer.
Yeah, getting better. Like, we whooped them.
But
three different goals from three different lines on the field. And defender, midfielder, forward all scored a goal.
Each of those goals beautiful in their own way. Let's talk about this game, because you look at this lineup, and outside of Jake Davis being right back,
let's have a Jake Davis appreciation podcast for a minute.
Sure. Jake Davis does deserve his flowers.
When you're ready to have another interview on this podcast, I don't know why I put it all on you, but I'm like, well, I'm waiting for you to have some time, right? When you're ready to have someone on here, Jake Davis probably needs to come on here and open up to us a little bit.
Jake would be great. We can try to make that happen.
I know he's a little younger and probably a little more composed, but it's like, I'll unzip him. I'll get him. I'll unlock him a little bit.
Phrasing.
Not phrasing, bro. Unzip. You never heard the term unzip? You ever go to therapy and you start crying? Well, your therapist unzipped you.
I'm crying therapy all the time. So I cry in therapy and I cry in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So,
oh my goodness. Hey, I'll tell you what though, there was a lady when I saw Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know how old this woman was, but I just out of nowhere, I just hear,
yeah, this is very spoiler
bro,
free, very emotional movie.
audible. It is emotional, and I had like a tear, but like I wasn't sobbing audibly.
I wasn't
was
sobbing audibly, but there was
it was
more than a
wild.
couple tears that were falling.
You were like, I'm not
But
okay.
Jake Davis, what I was gonna say is of the 11 that were out there on the field, he's the one that you look at. They're like, okay, he's definitely probably not the first choice person at right back, although he's continuing to get better every game. Maybe in the future, but I don't think anybody. Well, that's not true. There would be a segment of the audience of the listening base that would be like, yeah, Jake Davis should start over Graham Zusi, but we'll see. My point is this 11 that we put out: Shallowy, Polito, Russell on the front line, Voltaire, Rodoya, Eric, Tommy, very strong midfield, and Denbe, Fontes, Rosero, Davis, and Melia. I mean, that's about the closest thing to the first choice 11 as we've had this entire year. That's a
Well,
pretty strong lineup.
that's what it has to be. Like, and if
Mhm.
it's not that, then we should be worried.
Mhm.
And it's not realistic to think that one of those won't get injured at some point in time. But
Right.
that's the lineup. That's what it has to be to get results. And I'm convinced that's a strong freaking team, dude. And it
That
looks
is.
like they're having fun. And
Mhm.
didn't Johnny Russell say they went on some sort of little player retreat before Seattle to get their
Yeah.
mind right? Like, what'd they do? Go to Top Golf or some shit?
Daniel was actually the one who mentioned it first. He was the one who kind of mentioned that he called it like a players retreat. We had a little team retreat before the Seattle game, and I think that helped us a lot. I'm not going to say we're going to win all of our games from now on
Where'd they
because
go?
we can lose next week and everything can still be good. But I think so far it's been really good, and as you can see, the chemistry is good. So
You're
he
like,
kind
yeah,
of
we went to Jose Peppers. It was great.
um, Johnny didn't elaborate. He made it sound like it was a one-day thing because when Johnny was asked about it, he was like, "Yeah, on Tuesday we had the players get together," and I forget exactly how he said. I'd have to go back and listen, but it was something along the lines of some truths were spoken, and we talked about a lot of things, and then we came out of that feeling like we were in a pretty good place.
So they didn't
So
say where they went. So strip club.
no, I don't think it was probably that.
If you can't tell us, then maybe it was. And there's
I
nothing
just
wrong with that. That'll get your mind right.
I think it was, you hear about these occasionally in sports, like players only meeting, where it's like, because the coaches can only do so much, and that, at a certain point, it's like players kind of got to take it upon themselves to figure it out. Like, you get paid to do this. Do you want to be here? Do you want to do this or not? And it was interesting the way Johnny kind of said, like, yeah, we talked about some honest truths, or however he phrased it. I think they probably had some open and honest conversations about level of effort and where they were and who was doing what and whatnot. And I'm like Daniel said, I'm not going to sit here and say that players meeting fixed the team, but clearly the Seattle game,
something.
they looked better. And this game, they looked like they were having a hell of a lot of fun. So
Listen, I thought Seattle was a fluke. I really did. I was like, okay, let's see what happens, next time. We can't sit here and say everything's good to go after this
no,
game. Like,
not at
that's
all.
my first thoughts. I'm not like, boom, we're back, baby. Because Minnesota's struggling. Minnesota has not won a game for a bit. They started out strong and then they've kind of had a little drop off in quality. So I'll be interested to see how it goes against St. Louis next week, or LAFC midweek.
LAFC on Wednesday.
I'm overlooking that one because I don't know if you guys know, LAFC, they good.
What?
They're pretty good.
Yeah, it was an interesting game, and I think the biggest thing for SKC in this game, because if Minnesota would have scored first, obviously Minnesota didn't score at all, but let's say Minnesota scores first or Minnesota scores early, can you imagine the energy and the air that would have been sucked out of Children's Mercy Park? It would have destroyed the entire mood. But instead, 9th minute, Danny Rosero, his first goal for Sporting Kansas City off of a corner kick. Daniel Shallowy taking set pieces. He sends it into the box. Danny Rosero skies above the Minnesota defender, gets his head to it, puts it in the bottom left corner just about perfectly. I mean, if St. Clair saw it a little better, maybe he could have stopped it. But Rosero, he's kind of that target man that we've been waiting for as a center back on set pieces. And this is the first time it's delivered. And you couldn't have asked for a better start. First 10 minutes, Sporting Kansas City goes up. Great.
Listen, I got to have a moment of Kustradamus. Buddy,
It's been a while.
As I'm watching this, Apple TV puts a stat in the corner and says Sporting has had this many corners since they've scored off a corner kick.
Mm-hmm.
Then the announcers mention it and said they've had a lot of corner kicks, but they just can't get it scored. And I looked at the clock and I was like, oh shit, this is when they score. Because I knew when a header was coming. And sure enough, I was like, dude, you can't write that. Like they're counting you out. Oh, they're bad at corners. And it's like, nah, man, it was time. And Danny Rosero didn't need to, like, he barely got it on his, like, he kind of faced it.
Kind of was his face. Yeah.
Yeah. But it didn't matter. As long as you get dude, I've been in those positions. I've scored headers and I'm like, I don't know how that happened. I just got a head on it.
That's the biggest thing that I've been just pounding the table about with this team up until, for this entire first 10, 11, 12 games of the season, whether it's corners, whether it's headers or shots or whatnot, just get the ball on target. Put the ball on frame and see what happens. Because so often in the first 10 games of the year, they were too hesitant to take a shot. They didn't make the right pass. They'd get a free header and they'd get it over the box. You can't score if you don't put the ball on target. If you put the ball on target, you don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, they might save it. You might score. Or it could be deflected and then the ball's going around the box and there's some chaos and then you get it off the rebound. Get it on target and see what happens. And Sporting Kansas City against Seattle and against Minnesota, they're getting balls on target more. And they had multiple runners into the box attacking up the middle of the field. That was not something we were seeing done in the first 10 games of this year. And it's a sight to behold.
It was to behold.
22nd minute, just a little bit later. Again, this goal's my favorite goal of the year so far, and it's one of my most favorite goals I've seen Sporting Kansas City score in a few years, honestly. It's Ndembe, who passes the ball to Alan Pulido at the midfield line, and I had said during the game that Pulido's ability, and I said it to start this podcast, his ability to drop into the midfield unlocks so much space and so many passing lanes for other midfielders or wingers to run into, because you have center backs stepping up with sort of a hybrid 9-10 style player. When you have a striker who can come all the way back to the midfield line, receive the ball the way Pulido did, and then turn and just create 30, 40 yards of space where then he perfectly just does this little chip pass to Remy Voltaire because the defenders step up thinking that Pulido is going to take the shot. And then Remy Voltaire, I assume he saw Daniel Shalhoub out of the left eye, but this little perfectly weighted back heel, Shalhoub takes it first time, does not try to touch it around a defender, first time into the side netting. This goal was absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know if you saw on TV, that ball hits the back of the net and Johnny, he's like William Wallace all of a sudden yelling freedom at the south stand. He's got his legs spread and his arms are out. And he's just screaming as loud as he can. It was so much fun.
Yes. And dude, Daniel likes to shoot from that angle as well.
He does.
Because a goalkeeper's not always expecting it to come at you that hard, but he finds the freaking alley to just fit it in there and curl it in that back netting. It's just, dude, first off though, we have scored 4 times before the 12th minute this season. That's interesting for a team that has a losing record. You would think like, wow, we like to score early, here we go. But I don't know. I'm trying to stay hopeful, dude. I'm trying to stay optimistic on things, but like, this is a very exciting game to talk about right now.
It is. And if you look at, I'm looking at the screenshot right now on my computer. It's after the back heel pass, the moment that Daniel Shalhoub is about to shoot. I talked about there are runners in the box now. I am counting 5 Sporting Kansas City players in the box. And
we used to have 0.
3 of them are wide open and perfectly spaced at different parts of the field, because you have Alan Pulido on the 6-yard line right at about the midpoint of the goal. You have Johnny Russell at the 6-yard line getting ready to crash the back post in case Shalhoub sends it there. And you have Eric Tommy behind them at about the penalty spot, and all the defenders are crashing toward Daniel Shalhoub on the left side. So you have 3 offensive players wide open on one side, at sort of run this like triangle offense, if you will, of 3 different spots. So even if Shalhoub shoots the ball and it gets punched away by St. Clair, or Shalhoub decides to cross it, there are people in space and options, and this is what you were not seeing before. And it all started with Alan Pulido coming back to the midfield, turning the defender, and then springing himself for 40 yards of free run space.
Yeah, also kind of feels like a Minnesota problem too. Like some of this stuff seemed a little too easy.
Sure.
And I'm like, Minnesota, get your shit together, man. Adrian Heath, what you doing, man?
Moments after the second goal was probably the biggest moment of the game. Tim Melia gets called for a penalty, and I kind of agree with Tim. I said this at the time. I was like, I don't know that was actually a penalty.
What?
I mean,
he gets him. He touches him. He doesn't get the ball.
Yeah, but he probably didn't need to go down the way he did. But this is what Tim said after the game. He goes, I want to see the penalty again. It's difficult when you're moving fast and the player is going to see themselves in a poor position and that kind of put their body in between you. I'm not sure what you're supposed to do from the goalkeeper side. Like the ball is clearly going out of bounds. There was no reasonable way to play the ball back toward the goal. It was already off to the side.
Really?
And Tim probably didn't need to go down the way he did. I haven't watched it close myself, but my gut reaction when I saw it was like, I don't know. It felt like it was just rewarding poor play on the side of Minnesota.
It didn't matter because Tim was like, well, I fucked up. Let me fix my mistake real fast.
With one of the worst penalty kicks I think I've ever seen taken.
Who is that man? He's new, right, to the
Sang
league?
Bin, yeah. And what's hilarious, I was not watching MLS 360, obviously, because I was on or in the press box at the game. But I was texting with a friend, and they were like, they cut to, or they're watching MLS 360. They cut to the Sporting game as the penalty is unfolding, and I guess they're talking in the studio, and they're mentioning Tim Melia. He's got this great record against penalties. He's a really tough one. I think at this point he's saved, only 26 of 42 penalties have been converted against him. So they're gassing up Tim Melia. And Caitlin Kyle, who I believe is married to Adrian Heath's son, she goes, yeah, but you haven't seen Sang Bin take penalty kicks. So we'll see what happens. And then he does that.
No, she's very biased. It's ridiculous. I'm like, I don't know how you have a lot of these pundits on there that are clearly biased and they vocalize it.
Yeah. So it was a really poor take, but hey, good for Tim for not moving at all. I mean, he just stands there, saves it. And that was the turning point of the game, I think, because that goes from 2-1 to 2-0. Sporting's feeling good.
I mean, yeah, if they would have scored that would have been a pretty big momentum killer. Do you watch MLS 360 sometimes, non-sporting games?
Yeah, I do.
Is it dumb?
It's better than it was week one.
Yeah.
There's still way too much talking head stuff. Like, I don't care. I still want just red zone for soccer.
You just want to see the games and they want to just talk.
And they're interviewing people when in the last 10 minutes of games. And I'm like, there's a tie game. Why are we having an interview with somebody that's not playing right now when we could be watching a tie game in the 82nd minute?
Interesting.
So I don't know. But the best thing about this game for me was, okay, you're up 2-0 at halftime, the most dangerous lead in soccer. And they closed it out in the second half. They hold the clean sheet. Gadi Kinda comes in to get some minutes. And rather than just sitting back and just letting it happen, they left no doubt. And in the 84th minute, Johnny Russell passes to Alan Pulido, who sends it. This is almost like this is going to be a little overdramatic. It's not quite the tiki-taka style, but Pulido finds Tommy, who finds a cutting Johnny again doing the sort of triangle passing play that Barcelona and Spain have kind of been known for. And then Johnny Russell has this perfect little layoff pass to Gadi Kinda, who then chips Dane St. Clair 3-0. Kinda's first goal of the year. He and Pulido are doing the LeBron James celebration at the Cauldron. And
were they though?
They were doing it.
Go watch that again real fast. It wasn't quite that.
I mean, they're doing the little pump down dance thing. And
okay, yes, it's supposed to be all slow and powerful, but they were like,
An attempt was made.
It looked weird. And then what was that goal celebration where they all huddled around and swung their penises around? What was that about?
I didn't see that.
You didn't see that one on the second goal? They were like, blah, 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 blah.
They're just dancing with their hips.
I was like, that's some locker room shit right there.
So 3-0, game, set, match, and then
LeBron,
Sporting Kansas City wins.
Go watch the damn thing. That ain't no LeBron.
I'll go watch it. Kinda was not offside. Kinda was not offside for Minnesota fans who were like, he's probably offside. No, he was held onside by Zarek Valentin. So totally
what is that?
Good.
He's doubling up. He's doing 2 pumps to 1 leg lift. It's leg lift, pump.
Yeah, it was not an effort was made. An effort
was made. It's NBA playoff season, but they ain't watching.
No. So, but 3-0, and that's the game. So, feeling good, feeling real good. Peter had some good quotes.
We temper this for right now, dude.
Mm-hmm.
We have 2 wins on the season. Minnesota has 3. Mm-hmm. Yes, we just whooped their ass, and whooping anybody's ass in a game of soccer is wonderful. Mm-hmm. But I can't read too much into this right now and expect us to whip every team's ass.
Yeah. No.
I'm very much pessimistic still. I'm very much hopeful, but not really.
Yeah, hey, no, you're totally right. And I want to talk about that more. I want to talk about some of Peter Vermes' quotes after the game. I want to talk about the speech that he gave to the KC Cauldron after the game and the reaction to that. And then we'll talk a little LAFC in St. Louis coming up. But we're going to take one more break, and we'll be right back to talk post-game reactions.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
All right, we are back. Again, 3-0 Sporting Kansas City. Much different vibe in the post-game press conference. Much different vibe in the post-game locker room. Definitely a lot more excitement, a lot more joy. Peter Vermes had some interesting comments. He said in the post-game presser, "There is a side of me that's vengeful. I want to show everybody that we are that good. I know there's been a lot of doubt." So he's heard what's been said before, and we have confirmation that he heard what was said in terms of the chants from the KC Cauldron at the CF Montreal game, where there were Vermes out chants and "Hey Vermes, it's all your fault" chants. And he did address the Kansas City Cauldron after the game. He and a player usually will go talk to the Cauldron after a win in is it still called the Members Club? I don't even know. The Budweiser Brew House, whatever
Budweiser Brew House.
Called now. So clearly, between the comment that I just read, he's hearing things. And then we have the video, courtesy of the KC Cauldron on Twitter. The audio, just you might want to listen. It's a loud, open environment, so it's a little echoey. But we're going to play this video for you. It's about 2 minutes long. And then I want to talk about the comments that Peter said to the Cauldron. So we'll kick it to that video right now.
You have to follow me for just a moment. In our last home game, there was a comment, there was a chant. There was a chant that was going on. And it was coming from close to the corner. And I just want you guys to know something. First of all, if you're not happy with me, I can accept that. What's that? Hold on. For those of you, because I can tell you guys are here, you guys are supporting the team, and I want you to know from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate that very much. What I don't like, and I'm not afraid to speak to this, and that's this. I've dedicated 20 years of my life to this club. And I come to work every day, and I bust my ass to make sure when it's on that field that they're ready to play. And so, I just want all of you to know something. You can be upset with me, but don't stop supporting the players. And let's remember one other thing. In my time at this club, except for one trophy, I have been a part of every one of them in some way, shape, or form as a player's coach. And I have left my blood, sweat, and tears on that field, on the training fields, on the sidelines, on the field, in the goals, everywhere. And I'm going to say my last speech. There are a lot of moments that have been brought to this club that have been fantastic. We've had 4 finals. We've had 4 championships in my time, as well as 3 of which were won in this stadium. And I'm telling all of you, and there's more of that to come. So if you want to see it, come to that stage.
All right. He's
Best
fired
part,
up.
I'm coming in. Best part is when someone yelled something and Peter goes, "What?" And it sounded like he's like, "Say something. Say something."
Yeah. He thought, well, because I mean, hey, a lot of the people from a non-zero number of people in the Cauldron last game were calling for his job. And the guy, you can hear kind of in the background, again, the audio, it's a little tough to hear, but the guy yells, "We love you, Vermees." And his response is, "Hold on." Which I love.
He's like, "Hold on, we'll get to that."
Right.
I think if Jordan could put in some audio from the Wolf of Wall Street here of Leo DiCaprio going, "I'm not fucking leaving."
It is big. It's kind of the energy he's giving off at a certain point.
That's kind of it. I feel that he's
probably
like,
would have been received better on SKC Twitter if Peter did just get up on the mic and just goes, "I'm not fucking leaving.
Yeah,
I'm not fucking leaving." And then everybody would have
Absolutely.
cheered.
And just drops it. And he goes, "You want to see more of this? Come to the next one." And we're like, "We know how it works."
Okay. These comments are really interesting to me because I think a lot of people, there's been a reaction that I don't know that I would have predicted to these post-game comments because it actually rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, or a lot of people on Reddit. Yeah, Reddit.
Oh, you still go on there?
I try to get look. I'm not
cesspool of a site
active on r/Sporting KC, but I'm trying to. That was where the initial Vermes out vibes kind of were birthed.
Makes sense.
It grew to.
What are they saying on 4chan?
But so I was like, I just kind of want to see. But I also saw it on Twitter too. These comments, I think, rubbed some people the wrong way. And what's interesting is the first half of his speech, I think people were good with. If you're not happy with me, I can accept that. But I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you supporting the team. You can be upset with me, but don't stop supporting the players. I think everybody's cool with that. And a lot of people are like, he should have just stopped there.
So what else was bad?
It was the next part that seemed to rub some people the wrong way. The part when he goes, "In my time, I've been a part of every trophy except for one. I've left my blood, sweat, and tears on the field and the goals, etc. We've won 4 championships, 3 in this stadium." People kind of, I think, and I would say rather cynically, interpreted his comments there as, "How dare you question my job? I've done so much for you. You should be grateful to me."
It was Jake Reed, "Are you listening?"
But I don't actually think that's what Peter was doing.
That's what it sounds like, though.
I think what Peter was doing, and this is a less cynical interpretation, is he's clearly been listening. He saw the letter that the Cauldron put out there.
Probably.
And one of the things that they specifically mentioned in the letter from the Cauldron is, "We've seen no emotion from the coaching staff." Which, that, if you remember when we talked, that was kind of one of the things that we were like, I don't know about that one.
So he mentioned, you want emotion? How about blood, sweat, and tears?
And so what I think he was trying to say isn't, "How dare you question me? Look how successful I've been." What I think what I think he was trying to say, maybe he could have reworded it better, but was, I know the expectations of this club are not where we are now. I've won championships. I care about this club. I want to get us back to our winning ways as much as you do. Look at all the effort I've put in, and I know that we can get there with this team. We don't have a good team. We have a great team. So come back next week and let's do it again. That's how I interpreted it. But it's just been interesting to see that. I think it's almost like a case of confirmation bias. If you're already Vermes out, it's like, well, look at this jerk. He's saying that we should just be grateful because of all he's done. Where I was kind of more like, what I think he was trying to communicate was, believe me, I care about this club. I don't want us to be here. I want you to trust me that we can get us there. But it wasn't a "how dare you" type thing.
Well, Vermes out sure is a little quieter these last couple of weeks, aren't they? I want those people to stick to their damn guns. And if that's truly how you feel, I'm sure there's some. But I mean, like, a lot of them just quiet down because they're like, "Oh, all right, you fed me, Daddy. Thank you for feeding me some wins."
Some of them did for sure. Others were still like, again, on, I'm trying to get a pulse check on the Reddit and the Cauldron Facebook and Twitter or whatnot. There's still a group of people that are like, "I'm still Vermes out. This doesn't change anything." And what is interesting to me is,
who asked them, by the way? Did people say, "Hey, if you're Vermes out, chime in, please"?
There was literally on Reddit, somebody was like, "What would he have to do to get you back?"
Oh my
That was a
Lord.
question that was posed because there were some people that before the game even, they're like, 3 points doesn't matter. I still want him fired. And this is kind of what I was trying to mention last week after the Seattle game, where people were like, we're still at negative 11 goal differential in last place or whatever. True. And that's not a great hole to dig yourself out of. But again, these are
Less
steps.
than that now.
Right. You cannot make up a 9-point gap and 11 goal differential in a
Nah.
single game. You can if you get sustained wins and sustained good performances week in, week out. And
We're a -8 now, bro. Goal differential.
2 games a trend does not make. But if you can go out there and you can get 3 points over these next 2 games against LAFC and Seattle, or dare I say in a perfect world, obviously 6 points, but if you can somehow get 4 points from these next 2 games, oh, buddy, this is a whole different conversation. But if you can, let's be real.
What are you doing?
Probably losing to LAFC, right? Midweek game,
Dude.
in the league. But if you lose to LAFC and then can go beat St. Louis, you're putting together a little run there.
If we do anything but lose to LAFC, everything is fake. This is a sham. I don't understand anything anymore. But like, dude, they're gonna go fight. They're gonna go fight, and they're jazzed, right? They're scoring goals, and they know LAFC's tough.
Yeah, I just, it is interesting because I think there are some people who, again, I understand the frustration. It doesn't seem like there's anything Peter can do to win them back. You know, he could win MLS Cup this year, and I think there would still be some people that would be like, thank you, get out. And then there are people that are, okay, again, 2 games doesn't wipe away the first 10 games, but it's a start. We've started to dig ourselves back up a little bit. You got to keep it going. Right now, Sporting Kansas City is 3 points out of a playoff spot, and we have 22 games left to make up 3 points. Now, obviously, the goal should not be get to 9th place and make the playoffs that way. Maybe they could dig themselves up more, but, you know, you don't know what's going to happen. And so the last 2 MLS games have been positive developments for the team. I'd like to see it continue.
All you got to do, I mean, dude, there's not much more you could improve on in that Minnesota game. It wasn't a perfect game, but it was pretty good. And what would have made it perfect if Tim didn't give up the penalty.
Mm-hmm.
But then the fact that he saved the penalty was like, holy shit, this game is outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had freaking Polito hitting the crossbar. You know, Polito was lasering in shots, by the way, trying to go for goal. If they keep that same intensity, that's a dangerous team. I don't care that it's against Minnesota, who only has 12 points or whatever. We just beat Seattle, who's number 1 in the conference. LAFC's number 2, right? Or is it vice versa?
Yes, number 2. Although on points per game, they're actually number 1.
Okay, whatever. So LAFC leads the conference, but we just, I don't know. We went on the road and took care of business. I'm not saying this is possible, but anything's possible.
Mm-hmm. It is.
I'm getting myself excited right now. I'm not usually a man of optimism, but let's go. This midweek game, I need this kind of energy because it's freaking 9:30, bro. Yeah. And right after KC Current game, it's an evening of soccer.
Yes, it is. And so, I don't know. Like I said, 2 games doesn't erase everything. 2 games doesn't fix everything. But the vibe in that locker room was fun. Music was playing.
Did you take your shirt off and whip it around?
They were back to their old antics of, we're sitting there interviewing Daniel and the guys are throwing out fake interview questions behind us, pretending they're reporters and they're having a good time. And Johnny's over there giving the interview and they're all doing fake Scottish accents and yelling at him. Like they were having a good time. And that's how the locker room felt when this team was good. And, we straight up asked Johnny, we were like, last time this team was in here, this was not the vibe. You said you honestly didn't know what to do. And he was like, look, I was clearly upset.
Yeah.
I said some things I shouldn't have. I should have composed myself more, but this was a much different post-game feeling. And I think it's good to have a little bit of success and joy and hope that they can build on that confidence.
Yeah. It's almost not fair to interview people after a game, but like, that's what people want. They want those spicy bits, the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Fans want to hear the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And you heard it with Johnny, two very different extremes. And I just hope this extreme continues. But this is the time you go on a run. This is the time you string together some wins or draws on the road.
Mm-hmm.
This is when you make that run and get into the playoffs, maybe in extravagant fashion. Maybe not just squeezing into the playoffs, but maybe solidifying a spot in the playoffs and shutting everybody up because it just took a minute to get things together. I know what you're thinking, Koos. Who are you? What happened? Why are you like this today? I don't know, man. It was just such an exciting game.
You're just feeling good. You're in your Savannah Bananas jersey.
3-0, dude. Like, that doesn't happen. Not this year. Yeah. And so I don't know. But also it's Minnesota. I'm all over the place.
Right. Well, this is the confusing thing. This is how confusing it is to be a Sporting Kansas City fan right now. And I think this is the internal struggle that the fan base is dealing with and why it led to some conflict in the cauldron against Montreal, is because there are people who want to still believe. And then there are people who are done and are ready to move on. And then you go on this 2-game run, and then some of those people who are done, some of them are still done, and they're sticking to their positions, and then others are like, I don't know, this is kind of fun. Like, I hope this can continue.
If you score 3 goals in a game, you will win that game. Like, I stand by that. Almost certainly you will win if you score 3 goals. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, man. The fact that we put 2 on Seattle and then 3 the next time at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm freaking jazzed about this team right now. That doesn't mean it won't change, but right now I'm excited.
Right. We did get a message from one of our longtime listeners, Kobe Roney. He sent this to us late. Well, on Twitter it says Roney.
Does it say Roney?
Roney.
I feel a little dyslexic sometimes. That could be on me.
Well, it's okay. He messaged us, on Sunday night. And he goes, hey, meant to send this last week, but got busy. You guys asked how we're feeling about how things are going. I love that we're finally starting to turn it around, but the Vermes out chant has just been ringing in my head and has been bothering me more and more, especially after PB's speech. He's been here forever, played here, won cups here. He's in our fucking Hall of Fame, and just the disrespect with that chant irks me. It's totally fine to want a new head coach. I also think it might be time for a new head coach, but that chant at our home, man, that's low. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. See you. So
I appreciate it.
I think that's a reasonable position to say, hey, I don't know if it's time. Maybe it is time for a new coach, but I also I still do understand the frustration of a lot of the Cauldron members. And I think channeling that frustration into that letter was good. I still think it's wild that they haven't formally responded in any way.
That's weird, man.
Yeah,
I feel like was that Peter formally responding
between that and the KC Star article that Sam McDowell wrote that had some interesting nuggets in it from Illig.
Yeah,
but basically all it said is, yeah, we've talked about making a change. We're not afraid to make a change. But then it kind of went back to sort of the same talking points that Peter had. But we've been injured in this and that.
Yeah.
So,
but it is disrespectful to just chant that. I mean, this man has given decades of his life to this city, this team. He's been instrumental in a lot of things. And to just start, I don't know. It had to have started with just a small group of people. And other people are like, yeah, I feel that way, I guess. Let's do that.
Sure.
I'm drunk.
Bit of mob mentality. It's grown in frustration, game over game. Now, I'm not going to lie. If I came out of my office building and was like walking to my car and there was just a mob of people that were like, fire Jimmy, fire Jimmy, fire Jimmy. Bro. Like, I wouldn't love it.
No, it's not great. Hey, people want me off this podcast, but guess what? I'm not fucking leaving.
I know it's a different thing. He's a public figure, head coach of a professional sports team, but there's just a lot of emotion right now. So I appreciate Kobe, your thoughts, and others who have sent us their thoughts, and please do continue to send us your thoughts. Email nootherpod@gmail.com. You can tweet us at nootherpod, at Dan Kooser, at JCMax03. DM us, leave us that 5-star rating and review. Let us know how are you feeling after these 2 games of winning? Where do things stand? And if you are somebody who is still on the Vermes out train, what would earn your trust back? I'd be curious to know. We want to hear that perspective too. So heading into the St. Louis game, I know we're running out of time here soon. I do want to talk about that, but I also did just want to congratulate Daniel Shalhoub and Danny Rosero We're selected to team of the match day. That's 2 weeks in a row we've had team of the match day people. So we'll see. Midweek, we mentioned LAFC. They just shellacked RSL 3-0 on the road. So now we're going to, it's not called Bank of California, BMO Field, I think is what it's called now, in LA. So I don't think either of us are thinking we're going to win that game. Sounds like. So probably lose against LAFC in all likelihood.
Buddy, yeah, I mean, that's what you got to expect, right? They're just so good. They might put on a clinic, but I don't know. We're fired up. It's a midweek game. All teams are tired in midweek games, right? It's just we got to travel.
Right. It'll be tough. And then we're going straight from LA to St. Louis. They're not coming back to Kansas City, I don't believe, because they're I mean, even though it's a 3-hour trip, I think they're just going to go there, train there, not make that drive or whatnot. Now, St. Louis is on a bit of a skid themselves. So this is an interesting time for us to have this initial game against St. Louis. They suddenly are having problems winning the game. Turns out it's a lot harder to win when the opposing team's center backs don't just freely pass you the ball in their own box. That has stopped happening to St. Louis. They lost to the Chicago Fire 1-0, and Chicago are not a good team. And now St. Louis fans are even starting to question the front office already, because this is how it goes with new MLS fans. They come in, they think they're the best thing to ever hit the league, and then they realize, oh, it's a little harder than I thought. Fire everybody 14 games into the year.
Yeah.
So
it's like, guess what? Sliced bread is still better than you, St. Louis.
It's a tale as old as time. We did this with Atlanta. We did this with Austin. We're doing this with St. Louis. But this is the first game. This is a big one. The Heartland Derby.
It's a big one. You're going down there.
I'll be down there. I'm going to be not as a press. I'm actually going to be there as a fan.
Oh, coming out of the cave.
Yeah, going with a fellow KCSN guy, Christian, who's going to be there with me. So looking forward to that.
Awesome.
But this is, I mentioned I had a name for this because Heartland Derby is apparently what SKC wanted.
What do you
got? St. Louis didn't dig it, but apparently SKC went forward with it anyway. St. Louis still wanted barbecue. Why wouldn't we? If you want something organic, what's been the most organic argument about these two clubs that's already happened? Who's the soccer capital of America? Who is it? St. Louis, Kansas City. Call it the Capital Derby.
Yeah.
That would be better than Heartland Derby, because then it's like, oh, this is actually an organic thing that's caused real friction between the fan base. I would be all in on the Capital Derby.
Or even just the I-70 thing. Like, why, Royals and St. Louis Cardinals had that going on, Yeah,
they got the I-70 series, and that's probably why they stayed away from that. But, like, honestly, there's some real dumb derby names out there across MLS. But
yeah. Do you like El Tráfico? Do you like that?
I think that's kind of funny, honestly.
I think it is, too. A lot of people hate it.
I think El Tráfico is kind of funny. Growing up in LA, it makes me laugh every time I think about it.
You're like, why wouldn't it be El Tráfico? Like, it's
but like,
it sucks.
The Hell is Real Derby, I get it. There's a sign somewhere between Ohio and Cincinnati, or Columbus and Cincinnati, on a highway that says "Hell is real," but like, but it means something to those fans, and that's honestly what matters most. It doesn't matter if I think it's numb. Do the Cincinnati and Columbus fans, do they resonate with it? And the Capital Derby, I think that could have been something that would have just there will be a constant argument over who's the real soccer capital, and that will go on indefinitely. But
yeah, I mean, and Minnesota's got to be mad because they're losing their nicest rivalry. We got new rivals now.
But I'll be down there. I'm excited. I'm feeling pretty good going into this one. I'm nervous, but I'm cautiously optimistic.
Okay. Yeah, I'm nervous as well. I mean, I'll be at Children's Mercy Park at 7. KC Current play that night, and then I think SKC plays at 8:30. So
yeah, I mean, Klaus for St. Louis, he's been sidelined recently with an injury. I don't know if he'll be available or not. I haven't been able to see an update, and of course, we're not going to get the latest injury reports until Thursday, probably. But I mean, if they don't have their starting striker, that's a blow. And depending on what happens against LAFC, Sporting KC are right now sort of in that stride. So I don't know. I hesitate to say I think we're going to go into St. Louis and just straight up win, because we haven't been there before. You never know how they're going to react. But I I'm excited. I think it sucks that we have a midweek game and they don't.
That does suck. They'll be looking to pounce on that,
Yeah. But I'm very excited. I'm excited to be there. I'm excited to be there as a fan. I'm going to drive down to St. Louis early in the day, spend some time in the city. I might even go to Schlafly, where I know the St. Louligans are having a pregame get together. And I shot them a message earlier. I was like, hey, if we come in peace, can we swing by as SKC fans? And they said, come on down for a libation and say hi. So might go behind enemy lines a little bit and try to fraternize with the enemy. But
they said cool. They said that's fine.
Yeah, they said. Well, actually, I got invited to two. So the St. Louis. Well, I invited myself to the St. Louigans. Who am I kidding? They didn't reach out to me. I was like, hey, can I come?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they said it would be fine to come by and say hi. But there was another supporters group, STL Santos, who they were like, hey, we can't speak for the Louligans, but you're always welcome to come party with Santos at the Fiesta Football. All are welcome. Latin music, piñatas, and more. Beware of some mild banter in Spanish.
Piñatas?
Piñatas.
Spanish?
Yeah.
Oh, man, you're so getting cursed out in Spanish.
I won't understand any of it, but I will be there for it, and it'll be amazing.
They'll fucking curse you out, and you'll just be like, all right.
That'll just be me and a piñata and a margarita.
Oh, my God. Don't give this man a stick.
But I'm excited. I like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about this game, but you never know. I'm excited to finally have what feels like a true rival.
Yeah. I hope it's not a bloodbath. And if it is, I hope it's not our blood.
That'd be great. Great. So you got anything else for our good listeners before we call it for this episode?
Nah, dude. Wrap it up.
Well, thank y'all so much. It's been great to be back here with another victory pod. 2 victory pods in a row. Love to make it 3 next week, either beating LAFC, St. Louis, or both. But like I said, leave us that 5-star rating and review. Shoot us that email, nootherpod@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter and Instagram @nootherpod, @Dan Kooser, @JCMac03. Make sure you check us out, KCSN Soccer, wherever you get your podcasts. Check out our YouTube page. You can see Dan's sweet Savannah Bananas jersey he's sporting. KCSN Soccer on YouTube. But yeah, until next time, he's Dan. I'm Jimmy. We'll catch y'all later. See ya.
We're not fucking leaving.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.